Dafeamekpor. He's the majority chief whip. Thank you very much for your time. I was making you minority leader. Apologies for that. Good morning to
God
you.
forbid.
Yeah. And good morning to you. Nice to have you on the line. First, I want to start with, because you've been through the old system. So what are we trying to change here with this law?
Okay, let me use the opportunity to thank all the stakeholders and all those who contributed, especially the NDC government that saw the wisdom in the fight that I waged over 8 to 9 years ago for reforms within legal system. If you recall, 2027, 28, there were crises in the law school. And in 2019, things got to a head. Students were admitted that never wrote exams, didn't attend any interview under the existing regime. This matter came to Parliament, a committee was set up, there were indictments, but nothing happened. Students who passed exams, when they got to the interview stage, they'll be asked, do you have a lawyer in your house? If you don't have a lawyer, you couldn't enter law school. But if I don't have a lawyer and I want to go so that I'll become the first lawyer in my family, what's wrong with that? But they use the system to deny people access to law school. So I waged the war. If you remember, there was a time that Senior Samuel Kujetu and I clashed on Joy News, I believe Joy FM also. He threatened me. He told me that it will never happen. I told him we shall reform the system. And now I'm in Parliament, so I will make sure I use legislative means to bring reforms. He told me it will never happen. I was a small boy. So the NDC at the time saw the wisdom in the fight that we were waging. Even at the time, during the 8th Parliament, myself and Susu, we submitted a private member's bill just for the reforms. They frustrated us. It didn't happen. So the NDC saw the wisdom, bought into it, included it in our manifesto. We campaigned with it. And so once we got into power, the Attorney General was quickly billed to do this and bring the bill. And here we are. And the reform is not only in respect of the training in the legal subsector. Also at the bar, we have a Ghana Bar Association that has become something else other than representing the interests of professional lawyers. And there too, I have introduced a reform. Today, we have established what we call the Ghana Law Society, another association of professional lawyers in this country that is fledgling and blossoming. We have over 3,500 members as we speak. We have moved on to actually introduce student membership into our fold. So when you are in the law school or in the law faculty, you are a member of the Ghana Law Society as a student member, as is done in many, many jurisdictions, so that when you qualify eventually, you just transition from being a student member to a professional member. They didn't do this for students. So students have problems as law students. There was nobody to fight for you. And you see the reforms also happening within the judiciary. So these are major things happening within the legal fraternity. So structurally, the Ghana Law School, as we knew it, is no longer the holding the monopoly to train professional lawyers. We are going to accredit universities of law faculties of universities that will meet set standards to train lawyers. And then when they are ready, they will sit for the one national bar exams. When you pass, you are called to the bar. So you can be in Tamale, not travel to Accra. When the UDS Law Faculty is accredited, you will enter as a LLB student, you graduate, proceed to pursue professional training course. You'll be issued with your license. You'll be eligible to sit for the national bar exams, and you will pass. You will be in Tamale and pass and become a lawyer without setting foot in Accra.
I see. With this, the passage of this law. So first, let's start from. So you have a law that has been passed. What happens next before we get to the point of the reforms that we're expecting? What next steps need to be
The
taken?
law is the reform. The passage of the bill into law is what has brought about the reforms. So that's the beginning of the reform. When it is assented to by His Excellency the President when he returns from the UN General Assembly, we have a transitional period between now and August for takeoff. So the deans of the various law faculties of the various universities were part of the preparatory stages of this law. So they are aware of the structural changes that we are bringing. So they are, as we speak, they are putting their house in order in readiness for meeting the standards for purposes of accreditation. It will also lead to a curriculum reform because we are saying that for the purposes of the LLB, the duration for somebody to obtain an LLB degree should be 3 years. And then the duration for the professional training should be a year. I went through legal training for 4 years, 2 years LLB, 2 years Makola. So 4 years should be sufficient for anybody to be trained and be ready to sit for the national bar exams and become a lawyer.
I see. What happens to the Ghana Law School?
Ghana Law School has been established under this new law as an institution that is also set up to train professional lawyers. Because you see, that has been their foundational role since 1958. So we cannot take away that from them. We have also set it up to offer what we call the post-call legal training for lawyers who have qualified from other jurisdictions, from other common law jurisdictions. You know, for instance, if you train in the Americas or in the UKs or in the Kenyans and in the Gambia, when you come, you go through what we call a post-court law training. You write the exams, you sit for the national bar exams, and then you are called to the bar. That is in the preserve of the Ghana Law School. Then we have also intentionally set them up to offer services that we call for which sit. Anybody who sits for the national bar exams and didn't succeed, the law school will be a place for you to go for preparations for your receipt. As it is, when anybody fails or is struggling to pass the national bar exams, there's no properly set up for that. So you have all manner of people organizing classes in city places and fleecing the people. We want to bring some structure to that sector because we are interested in the people who get prepared to sit for the exams and join in the bar.
See, then there's the issue because I recall vividly the tussle between you and your senior Sam Okujato. One of the reasons he was opposed to the reforms you're proposing was the issue of quality, that you're opening the floodgates, that kind of scrutiny that ensured only the best get through will not exist with this reform that you've succeeded at. How do you respond to that assertion that this will just essentially open the floodgate to every Tom, Dick, and Harry and water down the quality of lawyers we produce?
They made the same argument, or they made similar arguments, or people like him made similar arguments when we're setting up the medical school at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Before then, we only had one medical school in this country, University of Ghana Medical School, Kolebu. They said, oh, we're producing too many medical doctors, we produce quack doctors. We have moved beyond UST. We've established medical school at UDS, established medical school at UHAS. Even private entities have come in to establish medical schools. Do we have too many doctors? Aren't we still crying about lack of doctors in many, many places in this country? Have we produced quack doctors from Tech, from UHAS, from UDS? So if they have nothing to say, these are some of the logic they want to infest us with. As a country, we are growing. Our population is blossoming. The population of this country in 1992 is no longer has doubled or even tripled, if I have my figures correct. So we can never have too many lawyers. In any case, we have 261 district assemblies in this country. I don't think that we have provided lawyers to serve them everywhere. So there's a need for lawyers, by all means. Now, as to the issue of quality, the curriculum for training lawyers has rather been enhanced. It hasn't diminished. The content, and as it is, the content has been enhanced. What people studied in the 1970s and 60s and became lawyers in this country is no longer the curriculum available now that is on offer. It has been far enhanced, even though retaining the core content. So lawyers being produced these days are actually better trained. So if somebody is a bad lawyer, it's not because the school made the person so. It's because the person that is in the nature and character of the fellow. So if you have a bad lawyer in terms of professional performance, that is why we have the professional etiquette rules to guide the conduct of a professional lawyer. So that argument is a journey to nowhere. It's a zero-sum logic. So standards will always be maintained. And if at the university you don't meet the standards, you cannot be accredited. In fact, the standards are so high than before under this new regime. Because we are insisting on having libraries of a certain standard, law lecturers of a certain quality and standard. It used not to be the case. So they haven't even read the bill, and yet they will regurgitate anachronistic views just to undermine it. Then they couldn't succeed. And so we want to thank His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for accepting to do this for the thousands and thousands and thousands of persons who have obtained LLB, but the door has been shut to them for entering the law school to train as a professional lawyer.
Mm. So what happens if somebody enters the law school currently under the new regime? If I'm admitted into an LLB course, does that automatically mean that I will come out as a lawyer called to the bar?
Yes, you will go through, obtain your LLB. You'll be issued with a certificate, and then if you are minded, your school you proceed at your institution to the professional stage, also offered by your school, or you can apply to another school to train professionally. When you conclude the professional training, you again will be issued with a certificate. Then you will now be eligible to be presented by that institution to sit for the National Bar Exams, organized by the National Bar Exams Committee under the law.
Oh, okay. Then I heard, of course, your senior Samokujeto again yesterday, then also complain about the fact that you did not consult the current GBA enough, especially the president, that she said she was taken by surprise by the manner in which things proceeded. Was she extensively consulted?
First of all, the president of the GBA is not an institution to be consulted. She occupies a privileged position as the president of the Ghana Bar Association. The Ghana Bar Association is not the only law society in this country. All stakeholders were given the opportunity to submit a memorandum. She submitted a memorandum. Is she saying that she didn't submit a memorandum to Parliament? Is that what the president of the Ghana Bar Association is saying? I have a copy of a memorandum that she submitted to Parliament. You see, their problem is that when they take a position and the position is defeated, then they come out to say that they were not consulted. She brought proposals. The proposal didn't meet the favor of Parliament. How does that mean that you were not consulted? The Ghana Law Society, we submitted a memoranda to Parliament. The Conference of Law Deans, they submitted a memoranda to Parliament. Law faculties submitted memoranda to Parliament. Law students' unions in this country from the various faculties submitted memoranda. Lawyers practicing at the bar submitted memoranda. Judges submitted memoranda to Parliament. Judges who are also teaching law, they came together and submitted memoranda to Parliament. So this concern of always thinking that they must be the Lord of all that they survey, this is the end. They hate the reform. That is the bottom line. Because the status quo benefits them.
You've been so passionate about pushing these reforms. I wonder, is there something that informs this passion? Because I realized that at the time there were many people who were involved in the initial issues seen in 2019, but this became a personal fight that you took up. Why?
Why shouldn't I, as an elected representative of the people of South Sudan, how does anybody from Peking, Pali, Tongo, enters university to study, obtains an LLB, and cannot enter law school to train as a professional lawyer and find livelihood for himself and for his family and for the next people around him? Are you aware that law, like accountancy, is the only profession that when you finish, you may not have to find employment, and yet you can set up yourself and work? So when you have more lawyers, they have the ability to set up small law firms and recruit people, even recruit other lawyers to practice with them. That is the source of employment. But people don't avail their minds to this perspective. How painful is it that you pass an entrance exam, you are invited for an interview, and you are asked whether you have a lawyer in your family. You say no. That is the end. Does not breach the fundamental rights of our people under Article 25 of the Constitution. So if I make it a personal battle for the past 8, 9, 10 years, it is because of the injustice, the sheer injustice embedded in the existing system. And yet they were smuggling their children into law school. They were not subjecting them to the same stringent measures. That is the injustice for me that needed to be weeded out.
Let me then conclude by taking your views on another matter. I don't know if you've monitored your colleagues on the minority side who held a press conference yesterday commenting on the matter of the president's use of the private jet that belongs to engineers and planners, because his brother leased engineers and planners. They were the president to stop using it. They are also dragging the owner of engineers and planners to Shraj for an investigation. Has attention been drawn to that? What's your position on that issue?
First of all, because of public service, me, Dafeamekpor, I cannot sit in my brother's Achusta and even go to work. Is that the logic? The NDC is unlike the NPP. In this country, we had a president who was awarding public contracts to his 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 daughters that he sad, daughters that he gave birth to. Public contracts were given to them to do and to make profit under the NPP. The NPP says what? The president cannot sit in his own brother's vehicle or private jet because it borders on conflict of interest. Do they even understand the legal concept of conflict of interest? They should do some reading on it, then they'll be advised. But let the record reflect that any attempt to stretch this matter touching on his acquisition of diamond mines, let them know that the no objection letter came from the NPP government to the Minerals Commission as far back as March 2024. The minister issued that letter. In fact, the chief director of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources issued that letter on the authority of the minister. So the processes by EMP to acquire the diamond mines didn't begin today. It began long before the NDP was returned to power. Let the record reflect that. And if they will continue to say that because of public service, two brothers cannot eat from the same bowl or sit in the same car, or a brother cannot use a brother's vehicle for public service, well, then it's a discussion that we all of us must sit down and have.
Honorable, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
It's my pleasure, my brother.
Honorable Rockson Nelson Dafeamekpor is Majority Chief Whip joining us on the line, speaking to us on the matter of the reforms to legal education in Ghana that is being ushered in by the new law, the new